When leaders announce sanctions waivers, the headline rarely tells the whole story. The question is, who designed the incentive, what option looks rational on each side, and why Washington uses relief as a tactical dial rather than an exit ramp. Today we read this move not as peace but as a timeout to force Tehran back into negotiation while stabilizing global oil markets via the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't about ending conflict. It is about buying time to extract concessions on nuclear enrichment and regional proxies without committing to a permanent diplomatic shift that might fail in Congress or with allies like Israel. The core strategy here relies on understanding sanctions not as punishment, but as leverage. The administration's approach treats economic relief as an aggressive tactical tool designed to compel specific behavioral changes rather than signal friendship. In the framework agreement reached recently, Iran receives billions in frozen assets and temporary sanction relief strictly contingent on a 60-day ceasefire and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. This arrangement is not a permanent normalization, but a reset button, intended to force Tehran back into technical talks regarding uranium enrichment stockpiles once stability returns to regional trade routes. To understand where this pressure actually lands, we must look at the money trail flowing through proxy networks. The administration uses funding for Hezbollah as a primary gauge of Iranian intent and capability. Historically, Iran provides approximately $700 million annually to Hezbollah, covering 70% of its operating budget. By tightening sanctions on these financial channels and then offering relief only upon specific behavioral changes, Washington creates a direct economic incentive for Tehran to alter regional conduct in Lebanon. When the siege is lifted, it allows Iran to stabilize its economy, but the deal is structured so that any return to funding proxy warfare threatens immediate retightening of those same sanctions. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. This dynamic explains why lifting the siege removes American leverage before substantive nuclear progress can be made, according to analysts who view this as a management tactic rather than a solution. The strategic intent is clear. Maximum economic pressure is applied until it compels negotiation on nuclear capabilities and regional activities. However, experts warn that without a permanent resolution, Iran may use this window of relief simply to rebuild its own capacity while waiting for the political winds in Washington to shift again. This creates a cycle where sanctions are used as a temporary dial rather than a switch flipped to end hostilities forever. The stakes extend far beyond the immediate diplomatic row between Tehran and Washington. The reopening of the Strait of Hormuz was critical because 1/5 of global oil and gas trade passes through this narrow waterway. When supply chains were threatened by closure, it forced Washington's hand regardless of ideological preferences or long-standing grievances. Understanding that sanctions relief is tied to market stability rather than friendship explains why the administration acts quickly when energy flows are disrupted, even while maintaining a hardline stance on nuclear issues. This connects high-level strategy directly to viewer daily lives through the lens of gas prices and global supply chain continuity. Viewers often see headlines about waivers or deals reached and assume a permanent peace is near. The reality is far more complex. The waiver functions as an act of aggression in the sense that it uses economic relief as bait to extract concessions. If Tehran misbehaves during this window, leverage can be retightened immediately. This shifts the narrative from moral outrage about whether a leader is being soft on Iran to strategic calculation regarding how states use incentives and constraints to achieve specific outcomes without committing fully to irreversible diplomatic positions. The tension in this strategy lies in balancing short-term stability with long-term security concerns. While the deal stabilizes energy markets by ensuring oil flows through Hormuz, it also allows Tehran time to recover financially from previous sanctions regimes. This creates a risk that Iran will use the 60-day window not for genuine negotiation, but for rebuilding its nuclear infrastructure or strengthening proxy networks elsewhere. The administration accepts this risk because the immediate threat of global market collapse is more pressing than the potential long-term gains of waiting until the situation deteriorates further. The counter-argument from skeptics suggests that removing sanctions before substantive progress on nuclear issues can be made leaves American leverage diminished for future negotiations. They argue that lifting the siege allows Iran to stabilize its economy without fully addressing long-term security concerns, effectively rewarding bad behavior with a temporary reprieve rather than forcing structural change. This perspective highlights why the strategy is viewed as a management tactic rather than a solution. It keeps the conflict contained but does not resolve the underlying drivers of tension between the two nations. Ultimately, this approach reflects a broader pattern in realpolitik, where states use economic tools to manage competition rather than eliminate it. The waiver is designed to force Tehran back into technical talks regarding uranium enrichment stockpiles while ensuring global energy markets remain functional. It acknowledges that conflict can be managed through calibrated pressure and temporary relief without requiring the political capital needed for a permanent peace agreement, which might fail in domestic politics or with key allies like Israel who oppose any normalization of ties. The strategic takeaway is clear. Washington is using a temporary dial to force a specific outcome without committing to a permanent diplomatic shift that might fail in Congress or with allies. This allows the administration to maintain maximum economic pressure as a threat, while utilizing relief as an incentive for immediate de-escalation on regional proxies and nuclear activities. It distinguishes between ending a conflict and managing one, showing how states use incentives and constraints to shape behavior without necessarily resolving deep-seated strategic disagreements. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.